Hi y'all. Thank you for just watching um, this On the Edge short set. I'm Tony Nguyen. I'm the digital director at Viet Film Fest. I have the pleasure to share space with all of these wonderful filmmakers here for the On the Edge. Um, and I just kind of, of course, wanted to go around the room with everyone to kind of have introductions before we start the Q&A. I think maybe we can kick it off with maybe the Fungi Monster team to do introductions.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the invitation to this Q&A and generally just being invited to Viet Film Fest. Nadia, my co-director, and me, we're really happy to share this movie in a community space. I'm Doan. I'm the co-director of Fungi Monster, and my pronouns are she, her.
Yes, again, thank you a lot for having us here. I'm very happy to have been invited together with Jang. My name is Nadia, and my pronouns are she, her as well.
Maybe we can have anyone else kind of share introductions.
I can go. Yeah, as well, I want to share that sentiment. Thank you for having our short film. Her name is like a Sigh, part of Viet Film Fest. It's really exciting to just be part of a festival that's specifically for celebrating Vietnamese stories and representation. My name's Solara. My pronouns are she, they, and I was the writer director of Her Name is Like a Sigh.
Oh, hi. I share the same sentiment, so I just make it quick that my name is Duke. I'm a writer-director of the film Resurrection.
Hi, my name is Ken Do. I'm the writer and director of Jheff Wick. It's an honor to be a part of Viet Film Fest, and thanks for having me. Pretty new to this kind of experience, so yeah, really cool. Thank you.
Thank you all for so much for your really, really kind words. I think it's always really amazing to, of course, share space, whether in person or virtually. But especially, with the common interest of just really making such really, really grand storytelling, if anything. But I will, of course, just kind of kick things off. I'm just, of course, really curious to everyone. It's just kind of, how did you develop the idea for your movie?
I guess I can start. It was pretty simple for for mine. I'm a stunt performer, and just getting into like the directing and like filmmaking space. We wanted to kind of create a fight just to practice, and some of the guys were referencing Jeff. My name Jeff, and we were like joking around about it. We made a couple beats. One of my good friends, Osric, lended us his space, and we were walking through the beats, and it turned into like this whole thing. Um, and yeah, so we created this like giant fight thing just for that one gag. So then the guy could go, "My name Jeff," and yeah.
Nice.
My
I
name
can
is
go
Bob.
next.
Okay,
Oh.
okay. You go ahead.
Yeah. So for Her Name is Like a Sigh, I got the inspiration. It's kind of sad. I saw the news about the nail salon shootings that happened in Georgia. I believe now that was a few years ago. And I felt inspired to tell the story of a Vietnamese nail salon worker from a more internal perspective, that maybe people didn't know about, and like the kind of issues that nail salon workers might face. And that was very much inspired by also like women in my life and real people who I've seen just dedicate their lives to working, which I think is really common in the Vietnamese, especially diasporic community.
Okay, in my case, so my film is centering about a young character who's HIV positive. Actually, I wrote the film after I heard a story of a friend of mine. So I had a very close friend who was recently got HIV positive, and he was, I think at that time he was 33, and so because of that, I didn't know about that word, but then I kind of explore more about that, and I realized that with this generation of young Vietnamese gay men who got HIV positive, especially during the period from around 2010 to 2017. So I read about their stories, and I was kind of touched by their stories. So I began to have those ideas and began to write the film.
Shall I continue, or you wanna?
Yeah.
No, sorry, I finished already. I should have said that.
I was. I'm like pointing to Nadia, like, but you don't see it because probably in your view it's different. Nadia and me, we are studying at the same film school, and we kind of we knew that our next film for film school we would need to develop it, and we had several ideas coming up, and I think that I was very interested in family stories and transgenerational trauma and Vietnamese diaspora, which is like, I think, a topic that every Vietnamese German director is kind of dealing with right now. And so I suggested Nadia to find a topic surrounding food or like eating together, because that's how I know how Vietnamese families come together. And I didn't really know how to approach it, because I also know that because we want to also make a documentary, and it would be kind of hard to find a Vietnamese family who would be open to, be accompanied by a film team that they barely know, especially I think the first generation. And so I just remembered that I was taking part. I took part in a photo shooting, like a community photo shooting, and that's how I got to know Fongi, who's the protagonist of our movie. And I wanted to talk to her because she knows a lot of people from the community, and I wanted to know, do you know anyone who could be our protagonist, and can you think of someone when you think of food? And we got to talk, and she was like, yeah, I know some people, I can connect you with them, but if you don't find anyone, then I could also imagine to be a protagonist, because I'm very close to my mom, and we also talk about stuff. And then she told us about all her very, I don't know, special interests, and she's a martial arts fighter, photographer, poet. And I told Nadia all about it, and Nadia was like, okay, I think we found our protagonist. That's how we started.
Yeah, we kind of didn't really, I don't know if we talked to anyone else after that. I don't think so.
Yeah.
It was a very big decision, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really, it's really great to hear just really the range of ideas that we really would have. I think the multiplicity, I think, especially with these nuances, just really sounds really incredible. But I'll go into just kind of more individual questions now. I think I'll start off with Solara. My question, I guess, regarding her name is like a Sigh, is I'm really interested in how did you go about casting, just because everyone just felt very so organic with each other.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that question. Casting was actually really difficult, and I feel like other fellow Vietnamese and just like POC directors might come across this problem, but when I came to casting, it was like difficult to actually find people because I live in Vancouver, BC, and there's not a lot of Vietnamese filmmakers or Vietnamese actors to begin with. So I tried a traditional casting call, and it didn't really lead to a lot of options, unfortunately. Not because there's not talented Vietnamese people, but because there's just like there's not a lot of us in general, and I'd love to see that change. But what kind of ended up being like a blessing in disguise for me is because of the lack of just like Vietnamese um, actors in Vancouver that I could access, I ended up just deciding, hey, this is a story about really real people. And so I decided to instead reach out into community pages. So I started posting in the like Vancouver Vietnamese community Facebook pages. And I essentially like auditioned for the role of Ha and Bin in my film. I auditioned just like regular aunties and uncles off the street to see if they resonated with the role and if they could give me what I felt was a performance that suited the characters. And I eventually found those actors. The actors were for Ha is Hang and for Bin is Tuan, and they were both just members of the Vietnamese community locally to my area, and we really got along. And I think they connected with the characters, but they've never had acting experience. And for my supporting cast for the character of Lisa, I was lucky enough to be able to work with Helena, who is a professional actor by trade, and she really brought a really colorful and vibrant performance to my film as well, which I'm grateful for. But it was a really cool experience to work with both non-actors and someone who was really like who had a honing of their craft already. It was a really rich experience.
Yeah, no, that definitely sounds really both like exciting and challenging of kind of balancing both of that. So, but either way, I think, the result was still, of course, very organic.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I know you mentioned about Ha, and I think she's of course an extremely central person to this film. And just like, how do you think women like Ha can kind of open up and really unpack just their trauma?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I took a lot of inspiration for Ha's character, kind of just observing my mom, who I see as a very strong and very stoic kind of woman. And I think a lot of Vietnamese women are built like that. And I think a really good step into beginning that journey of like healing and addressing trauma that might be really deep seated. Like I think a lot of what I'm learning as an adult is a lot of Vietnamese adults, like in my parents' generation and older, weren't ever given the tools to like process and address trauma. So it can be almost like dangerous too to try to unearth those experiences when not given the right tools to like address them and like decompress through them and internalize them. And I think the first step is just like having a safe support network and having people who you feel comfortable to just start sharing those experiences with. And I really encourage anyone who relates to Ha, no matter your age, to just start by communicating, start by speaking about your experiences, whether it be with a friend, a family member, to your own journal, to your a pet. But I think just like externalizing that is a really good first step and just feeling safe to do so.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it is much needed to, of course, have these like larger conversations, both of course individually and collectively. So I think, of course, like with a film, I mean, for those of course watching, I think we of course encourage to have these, of course, like really hard but monumental conversations to really unpack. And of course, it's not a very easy lift, but it's a much needed lift. But thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
I think we'll then kind of move next to resurrection, and I'm kind of actually really very curious, I guess, how a lot of the visuals featured in resurrection are almost like very saturated. Can you talk about like the intent of the saturated visuals?
Oh, you mean the colors?
Yes, yes.
I think it was I think there was a contrast for the person, because he was in a way he the main character, he lives in a kind of um, outside he seems to be a very depressed or oppressed man, because of his life, but his inner world is very rich, and he has spiritual visions of his inner world. So I think that when you look at the world in a spiritual way like that, I think it's more saturated. I think I like that, because the colors of, in a way, it's a very it's a kind of purer vision of life. In a way, it's less murky than the normal way we look at life. So I think the way how you look at these very saturated colors are the spiritual vision of the main character. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes across as very otherworldly, but still very grounded. So I think that's a really fascinating answer to
Right.
that for sure. Um, and I guess, and again, I think that with the film, so much of it is really speaking about the interiority of these characters. And I kind of wanted to ask, like, how you kind of approach like isolation, and how like isolation is such a major part of this film.
Isolation, right? So it came back to the original idea of the film, is that because after my friend got HIV, he kind of completely changed his life and became an isolated person, who became like kind of a social outcast. So this character did the same thing as well. So the backstory that never appeared in the film was that they kind of stopped living in the city and live in nature instead. So I think that's the kind of a thing that I want to say, is that I mean, with normal life now they can live I mean, with medicine now they can live a pretty normal life, but I think that in a way they begin to isolate themselves right at the age where they should enjoy their life in a normal way. So how do I isolate? How do I think of isolation? I think in a way it's a kind of self-imposed isolation that these characters uh, make on themselves, because the kind of a guilt that they think that they have done. So I guess that's my answer.
No, I think that of course makes really sense. It really is a fundamental and monumental change that I think requires, and of course I would assume like of course requires a lot of heavy introspection on the really next steps. But
Yeah,
no,
I
thank you
guess
for
so.
yeah, but thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think we can kind of then go about with Jheff Wick, which is kind of I think on the contrast, I think we have so much like exterior. I kind of wanted to hear since you mentioned this actually, Hen, your background as a stunt performer. Can you talk more about that background as a stunt performer and how it kind of largely informed you crafting this film?
Oh yeah. Originally, I'm a stunt performer, and usually we choreograph fights and we just come out, we perform the fights. You don't really see our face or anything like that, and the day is done. Um, Now, experiencing from stunts moving into filmmaking has been quite interesting for me. There's a lot of different things that I've learned, like lighting and like storytelling and stuff like that, and I wanted to um, storytell through action. Um, so yeah, it's been really helpful being a stunt performer transitioning into filmmaking, because for this film Jheff Wick, we wanted to kind of like keep the mood lighter and create a story, like a physical story going through the environment, and um, which oh sorry, a little bit nervous, but
No worries. Take your time.
yeah, being a stunt performer, it's been sorry, I like
No,
blank,
no, no,
man.
no worries. I would just want to say, like, I think, a lot of the skills, of course, transfer, and I think a lot of that mindset really does transfer to, I guess, the world building that kind of goes about that, if anything. Which I think maybe leads to like another part of, how the past work kind of involves with the larger like storytelling world building, which is like how did you, I guess, go about with kind of choreographing the action scenes?
For the choreography and action scenes, we went through each section and beats of kind of the moments that we wanted to nail. And I guess that's what helps shape the beats and the action of how I end up filming it. Um, and yeah, I guess what my experience as a stunt performer has helped me transition to filmmaking and directing is mostly the beats, because for stunt work and for fighting and stuff like that, if you just have I find if you just have like the camera coming through the scene, it's a little bit harder to nuance and to show the danger of the performers and stuff like that. So looking at it from a stunt performer aspect or perspective, I really wanted to practice and see if I could portray those moments and those beats of danger um, through filmmaking, and it's been a really nice experience thus far, seeing that through action I can tell a different story in a different way. So yeah, that's been nice.
Yeah, I think with that kind of knowledge that you had, I think it definitely kind of does encapsulate like the larger expression and how the choreography really does feel very smooth. So, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense of how, like, I guess that transition kind of works out. So, but thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Um,
And sorry.
no, no, no. Again, nothing to be worried about. I think, again, all the movies here are great. And again, we're just sharing space to kind of course, share our larger journeys, if anything. Um, and speaking of their journeys, we have, last but not least, the Fungi Monster team, the kind of with this really rich, really rich film. Um, I noticed that, I guess, while watching this, it's the style of it is very observational, and I kind of can curious, how did you go about like shooting these scenes and kind of like keeping this like observational style?
You want to go, Maria, or shall I?
You can start, maybe, if you want.
Thank you for the question. I think it's interesting you notice the movie as like predominantly observational because it also has like it's a hybrid documentary and it starts and ends and in between there's other elements as well. But it's true, like the majority is observational and actually, yeah, I think Nadia and me, we were really wondering how to approach it in a way that we can make our protagonists feel very comfortable with the film team. We were a very small film team. It was just Nadia and me, then the camera person and the camera assistant, and I think that's it. But actually, Fungi, our protagonist, she's already very familiar with the workflow of filmmaking because she's a photographer and she has already worked in film as well. So she feels very natural with the camera. Like she, in a way, like it's very easy for her to kind of blend out the film team. And in the beginning, we kind of talked to her mom, who's also like a main character in this documentary. We kind of, in the beginning, first started to talk to Bakhan through her daughter, like through Fungi. And so Fungi kind of was making sure how her mom would feel safe. And I think because her mom trusts Fungi so much. She didn't even really need to know more about us. And like we were worrying so much about how we can build trust and maybe we should like spend a lot of time without the camera with her so that she can get to know us. But she already felt like, actually, I don't mind. Like you can just, yeah, do it as you want. And I think the trust that Fungi had with us already, like she gave it to her mom already. And so just recently I had a screening in Berlin showing Fungi Monster and like Bakan was there as well. And we again talked about how she never noticed the camera actually. Like she and Fungi, they have such a focus on themselves because I think they also they have their own daughter mother dynamic, and she yeah it wasn't even so much that we had to do, but it was just that how they work as a mother daughter team that it was very easy to just be there and um, it was also very like observational in a way that we didn't really plan things in advance. It was more like, okay, the day is gonna start, so what will the day kind of be like for the protagonist, and are there things where we can come with them and accompany them, but also sometimes or most of the time things happen were not predictable and I think they also had privacy because, like, I was the only person in the film team who understands Vietnamese, and they are talking Vietnamese all the time. And also, I grew up with like a Southern Vietnamese accent, so when they were talking, I was like, I don't really know what they're talking about. And like the camera person was always like, hey, I don't know if I should find another frame. Like, what are they talking about? And I'm like, I also don't know. And I just, like, Nadia and me, we also found out a lot this in the editing process when we work with the translator.
Yeah, that's true. I think in general, our question was a lot in finding the form of the film. I also thought it's interesting that you pointed out the observational part, because we also thought a lot about the performative part, or we wanted to make it performative, because Fung is also a performer, or she started investing more time and energy into her performance art when we were shooting. And that kind of was a big, always like a debate in what role do the performative parts play, and do they kind of live up to the observational parts, because the idea was to amplify or to show parts that you can't just observe in the performative parts, but they always kind of had this, like the observational always had this strength of being very natural and authentic, that performance sometimes that you have to recreate in a way. So that was kind of a long process for us to find the form of the film and how these two go together.
I think that's a really compelling point of the performance part of it. I think because of, I think with them being, of course, like contrasting, but of course, like, synthesizing with each other, I think that, that does really kind of speak a lot in the larger sense of how you go about with your form and whatnot. Which I guess maybe kind of speaking about form, and I guess approaching form. Of course, a large part of it is that just kind of about trauma. How did you both kind of want to go about framing trauma in Fungi Monster?
Should I start? And then you go. It does play a big role in the film in kind of every aspect, but we didn't want to make the film like primarily about trauma very explicitly, but rather to make the film also in a most possibly non-triggering way, not reproducing like explicit descriptions or anything, because that's not really what it was about for us. It wasn't about retelling or what happened, or claiming to be able to find images and sound and everything for what happened, because that's we knew that was impossible to kind of recreate this complex the complexity of what these experiences must have done and how they shaped Fungi's life. And so we were looking for a form that would allow for a way to allow to say, well, there's something. I remember when we were talking and Jang said we want to like kind of like you're swimming on the surface of water and you look down and you see it's very deep there, but you don't want to dive down there all the way, but you know that there is something there. So that was kind of I thought it was very well said. And that was kind of the idea, to let the audience know that there is something, and also to have Fungi take influence very directly in how she wants to have these scenes created. But not going into detail, because that wasn't our focus for this film.
I'm actually it's so nice you asked this question, because it's so essential to this film and to our approach, and I think it's the core of the whole dramaturgy, actually. And I think we approached the question of trauma a lot coming from film school, and how we have been taught to direct documentaries that center a lot around trauma and violence as well. And we were like, oh, all the same, reproducing the violence, and it's like it feels like doesn't feel respectful to us. And so we wanted to highlight the question of, for who do you want to tell the story? And do you want to tell the story for people who have not experienced the same trauma, or how would you tell the story for people who had this trauma, and how do they see themselves, and how do they want to see themselves. And like I think most people who have experienced trauma, they're like so strong and so complex, and the way they hold the trauma is so I admire this word, because they also know how to put beauty and tenderness in their life. And that's why it's so unfair that filmmaking is a lot about sensation and like highlighting the problem. So that's how we always knew that we wanted to kind of find a good balance, and kind of never reduce anyone to their trauma, but see them as people who also are in love with life.
Yeah, I think that was really well said. I think that really kind of does show with the film that of course, people who have gone through an exorbitant amount of trauma have, of course, like multiplicity. Their traumas don't define them. And I think showing a very crucial facet, and then something that kind of shows that there is like life that continues, like of course like a mother-daughter relationship, for example, and like focusing on that is of course like a huge part, of course, like centering away from what trauma is, but of course how that can expand and flourish to something more everyday. But no, I think that's really incredible insight. So I want to thank you both for sharing that, if anything. But unfortunately, I think we're kind of near the tail end of the Q&A. But I kind of course, wanted to ask everyone again, just as a final question, if y'all have any kind of upcoming projects to kind of share to the Viet Film Fest audience, of just like anything that you have new down, or any ideas that are kind of like relatively circulating.
I can go, I guess, if we are just going in the same order. Yeah, I'm really excited about my upcoming project or work. I actually spent the last 5 months in Vietnam researching and developing for this, and I'm currently writing my first feature, and it's kind of it's a bit of a step away from Her Name Is Like a Sigh. I think I'm taking a new direction with my interest in women's experiences, but this piece is going to be a female-driven revenge film centering around a Vietnamese woman entering an arranged marriage, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. And I did some like research in Vietnam just to learn about women's experiences with arranged marriages in the real world, and I'm really excited to be working on it. I'm just developing the script right now and hope to share it with the world whenever it's ready.
Yeah, I would like to go next as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm also developing my first feature. It's partly based on my own life experience. I'm Vietnamese. I live in Vietnam at the moment, but actually I lived 5 years in America, actually in New York City. So this film is a kind of a cross-cultural film that is based on certain themes that I've been trying to work around. So it's about a young Vietnamese who in a conservatory who wants to be a top pianist, a classical pianist. I actually played the piano for a long time, and he struggled with his project, but he met a mentor who's an American older man who almost became his mentor, but he also has his own problem, which is he has HIV actually. So it's a combination of a story about an artist, a young artist who wants to be an artist, also a kind of a fledgling love story between two kind of seemingly incompatible people who have their own problems. So I'm developing that, and I hope that I will finish the script soon.
Nice. For me, incorporating action again, we're tackling a concept. It's really in the really early stages right now, but it's a action concept about two siblings. The main issue is being classism. These two siblings have to kind of like come up in the world together and face kind of like trials and tribulations together with trying to get through a society that values materialism and status more than they do relationships within the family and each other. So we want to explore that now, but telling a story through kind of action and exploring trauma as well.
I wanna explore like short fiction film, and I'm about to write like a screenplay for a story on like friendship of two Vietnamese German friends that have been knowing each other since forever because of their fathers who have fled together, and they like they go days to the sea, and one wants to teach the other some sort of kind of swimming, and it kind of escalates a bit, and they're wondering like if they are too different, and like for the first time like wondering about things they've never said to each other. And the sea is like an essential part of it because it's a bit like kind of it brings some kind of chaos to what's real, what's dream, what's trauma. Are we in the present? Are we in the past? And whose life are we? And a bit of like magical realism.
Yeah, I'm currently in an exchange program in Argentina, and I'm here in the film school here, and I'm kind of researching in different directions. So I don't have a firm project yet, but I'm here there's a lot of like queer tango spaces, which I think is very interesting, and I'm researching in that direction, working with elder queers who do queer tango, and also there's kind of experiences during the military dictatorship in Argentina, and different directions. Also right-wing nationalism rising right now, and in Germany as well. And it's kind of I'm researching in different directions, and don't have a firm project yet.
Thank you all for sharing. I think this is really incredibly exciting, whether you know how early concept or not, how things are, but it's really exciting that you know there are upcoming projects from y'all, if anything. But I want to thank every one of you again for making the time to have this Q&A. I think the answers provided were just so incredibly insightful and very very thoughtful. And I want to thank, of course, the audience today for watching this, for all the shorts and this Q&A for On the Edge, and just again for Viet Film Fest. We really are here to, of course, really champion Vietnamese storytelling. So it really is just kind of a pleasure to share space with these wonderful filmmakers and just crafting such really really honest stories. But I want to thank you all. Thank you, and thank you for watching this Q&A.